In February of 2020, I was the first person in history to one-shot Manus in Dark Souls, and by extension I was the first person in history to truly finish the Vegeta 311 Dark Souls one-shot challenge. And I did the entire challenge without leveling, staying soul level 1 the entire time. Then in March of 2022, just a week after the release of Elden Ring, I became the first person in the world to one-shot the Elden Beast. Then a week later at level 70, I finished the world's first Elden Ring one-shot challenge. A few months later in November of 2022, I became the first person in history to one-shot every boss in Elden Ring at level 1. I sacrificed thousands of hours of my life to be the only person alive to one-shot everything in Dark Souls and Elden Ring without leveling. And now here we are the first week of the release of Shadow of the Erdtree, and I'm gonna do the impossible and become the first person to one-shot this DLC as well. If you enjoy the amount of effort that we pour into these videos, do me a solid and smash the like button. And if you want to see us make history again next week, be sure to subscribe. So just like all of you, I started the DLC last Friday by heading to the Realm of Shadow. Now, unlike most of you, I didn't have time to soak in the beauty of the DLC because I was on a quest to one-shot every boss in the DLC by the end of the day. Now, not even 5 minutes into the DLC, I found Logr the Beastclaw and I really wanted to try out the Beastclaw weapon, so I went over and one-shot him. For reference, I am using incantations, but I have 80 arcane, so I'm also a bleed build. Now at this point I wasn't ready to fight Rolana, so after exploring a bit, I found this route up to the Shadow Altus without needing to get through the castle. Basically, instead of going into the castle, you head east and you jump down all these rocks here. Then once you're on the bottom, you're just going to follow along the bottom of this ledge and you're going to unlock a spirit spring. Now you won't be able to use it first, but if you explore a little bit, you'll find this pile of rocks just above it. And breaking that pile of rocks is going to unseal the spirit spring and it's going to let you jump up to the Shadow Altus. Now once I was up on the Altus, all I did was made my way up towards Shadow Keep, grabbing whatever Shadow Tree blessings I could on the way. And through some exploration, I actually found enough to get all the way to Shadow Tree Blessing 7 before the Golden Hippo fight. Now this boss has 33,866 HP, but we're going to take advantage of its large hitbox. Now at this point I went back to Castle Encies and I made my way southeast. There were a bunch of dragon statues on the way, so obviously I had to go explore it. And this was my first time playing this, so remember I'm doing this blind, so this wasn't necessary, but it ended up working out. Just before going into the cave, I was actually invaded by this NPC called Ancient Dragon Man, but he was pretty easily taken care of. I also picked up several Shadow Tree fragments on my way down here, so when I got to the site of grace inside the cave, I was able to upgrade all the way to Shadow Tree Blessing 10. The Ancient Dragon Man boss has 19,097 HP. He has a smaller hitbox, so we're going to switch things up and use a breath attack. So like I discussed when I put this build video out, the diversity in this build makes it unmatched, and it can use any damage type in the game to one-shot bosses. Now with this boss out of the way, I'm no longer gatekept and I can finally go south on the map to see what this giant dragon's all about. As you can imagine with my build, I was very pleasantly surprised to see a Dragon Communion altar, and as you can see, I'm definitely dressed for the occasion. And I was really excited about this part of the map because I couldn't wait to see what kind of new Dragon Communion spells there were. Of course I chose to devour the Draconic Essence. And then from here, I had 3 Dragon Hearts, so I went ahead and spent them on Ghost Flame Breath to see if that was any good. Because though it's a one-shot challenge, this was my first ever playthrough of Shadow of the Erdtree. After some more exploring, I found enough fragments to reach Shadow Tree Blessing 12. Now at this point, even though I'm still level 150, I felt like I had reached a level of power that I was comfortable moving forward in Shadow Keep. So I made my way to the top of the keep and spent the next 12 hours trying to one-shot Messmer. Now Messmer has 38,981 HP. The problem is he changes phases halfway, but check out this world record big brain play here. Absolutely crazy, right? I don't know if I could ever repeat that RNG. I think it was a once in a lifetime experience. Terrible experience, negative 100 out of 10, but definitely worth the outcome. Now at this point I exited Shadow Keep and I headed west towards Romina. After walking through the fog door and seeing the size of her hitbox for the first time, I told my wife I'd one-shot her in 10 minutes. Now, she has 35,798 HP, but she has a massive hitbox, making life a lot easier. I one-shot Romina on my 3rd attempt, which was a great change of pace after spending 12 hours on the same 1-minute loop trying to one-shot Messmer. At this point, I started to feel fairly confident that I could finish this one-shot challenge, so I burned the ceiling tree, and I started to make my way towards the final boss. For those of you that haven't reached this point yet, burning this tree just teleports you to the final area. Also, if you're watching this video, I'm guessing you don't care, but just in case, if you do care, there are spoilers ahead. Now, I've heard a lot of complaints about the difficulty of this area and the enemies in it. Honestly, what that comes down to is build choice. So you really have two options then. You can embrace the suck and get good, which a lot of us have done, or you go to my channel and you grab one of my one-shot builds like this Dragonborn and make this a lot easier. Now, when I got to Radahn, because I'm stubborn, it actually took me a couple of hours before deciding that I'm not ready to one-shot him yet. I don't even know if it's possible to one-shot him because I'm not doing that much damage to him, and for some reason after the phase change, he's just not taking damage from the secondary lightning strikes. Even if he was, those strikes are not doing enough damage. So I explored some more and I found enough fragments to push my Erdtree blessing up to 16, and then I decided to head south and explore to see if I could find more fragments. So I went back to Shadow Keep and I used the coffin in there to move down in elevation to the watering hole. This is the only way I've found so far that gives us access to that lower level that heads down towards the Abyssal Woods. So then I just followed the path south and worked my way down towards the Darklight Catacombs. Now, on my way down there, I did come across these two hippos that were right next to each other and they each dropped me a Erdtree fragment. And I used them to test the damage of Ghostflame Breath versus Glintstone Breath. And I think the damage numbers got skewed because on the second hippo, I hit all headshot damage the entire time. Jori only has 30,506 HP. This was a tough one-shot to pull off, but check out the strategy I came up with. He rarely gives you a window to punish, and when he does, it's not long enough to charge an attack, so Sleepbot came in clutch. Now at this point I went back and I spent hours upon hours trying to one-shot Radahn. Radahn has 46,134 HP, and he doesn't have a very large hitbox, but check out what I did. I'm going to use this boss to show you guys the buff routine as well. So I start off with a Frenzy Flamestone to start building madness and I drink my flask. Then I use Golden Vow, followed immediately by Howl of Shabriri. This is used to proc Madness for the buff from the Black Dumpling while simultaneously giving us the buff for Howl of Shabriri for 40 seconds. So at this point I need FP and I need to quickly switch to my White Mask so that I can use Fetid Pots and Seppuku. This will proc the buffs from the White Mask, the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, and the Kindred of Rot's Exaltation. So now we only have 20 seconds to get all of our damage out, so to save time, I do all my menuing like swapping talismans while I'm going through the Fog Gate to save time. Now all we have to do is make history again. I cannot tell you how good it felt, and again, I don't know if I could ever do this again. The RNG gods were with me on this one. But now just 2 days after Shadow of the Erdtree came out, I've already one-shot every mandatory boss, including Radahn. And I've done all of it without leveling up, staying at the recommended starting level for the DLC of 150. I did the math and I have somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 hours into the Souls games, but it was all worth it. Because now I can go down as the first person in history to one-shot Manus, the first person in history to one-shot the Elden Beast, and the first person in history to one-shot Promised Consort Radahn. And you might think that that was satisfying, but it wasn't, because I want to be the first person to one-shot Bayle. Bayle has 41,612 HP, but we want that world record first one-shot, so we're going to turn that into 0. If I'm being completely honest, this was one of the easier one-shots of the challenge. I did this after about 5 attempts. But now with Bayle dead, we can go and grab the Priestess Heart and we can reach our final form as the true king of the Dragon Cult incantations. It's crazy to think that over 2 years ago, I did the world's first ever one-shot challenge in Elden Ring just 2 weeks after the game came out, with the same exact Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike that I used to pull this off. I have a new DLC one-shot build coming out next week, so be sure that you hit that subscribe button if you want to see that. And if you're still here, that means you enjoyed the video. Do me a huge favor and smash that like button. I'll see you guys next Friday, but until then, stay dangerous.